Thank you, Chairperson, and I welcome the opportunity to speak on this motion here this morning, and I thank Deputy Cohen for bringing it before the House. Chairperson, in responding to the motion that's before the House today, I'd like to deal with three particular sections. I'd like to speak about what government action has been taking place since the government came to office at the beginning of this year. I would also like to address the Sinn Féin amendment that is before the Chamber this morning, and I noticed their absence from the Chamber. I mean, it's one thing not to be absent for somebody else's debate, but when you actually have an amendment before the House, not to be in the Chamber is certainly bad manners and certainly disrespectful of the House. And I'd also like to refer to the Fianna Fáil motion, which is actually the substantive motion before us here today. Chairperson, the EU and the IMF agreement commits the government to a further adjustment of at least 3.6 billion in the budget which we'll be going into for 2012, including a reduction of expenditure of 2.1 billion. The Department of Social Protection has a major contribution to make in achieving a more balanced budget, as it accounts for 39% or almost 13% of GDP. So the Department of Social Welfare is a major area of expenditure in the state, and it is something that will have to be looked at in the context of the forthcoming budget. The examples of expenditure by the department can be broadly divided down to three areas. One is supports for working people of working age, and that accounts for about 55% of overall expenditure, or nearly just under or over 11 billion euros. That includes job seekers allowance and job seekers benefit, and it also involves carers who receive 762 million in supports in total each year. The second expenditure headline is retired and older people, which accounts for nearly 29.6% of overall expenditure, or nearly 6.1 billion. And nearly 60% of over 3.6 billion goes in the state pension contributory, which is the single biggest social welfare scheme, while a further 951 million and 920 million respectively is expected to be required for state pensions and non-contributory pensions and widows and widowers compensatory pensions, etc. The third headline area is support for children and families, and that accounts for almost 12% of expenditure, or nearly just under 4 billion euros of the annual budget, and just over 2 billion again goes on child benefit. So it's estimated that nearly almost 700 million will be spent on the qualified child increase, while almost 200 million will go on family income supplement. So these are major headline figures and they're major areas of expenditure. Now, I think what we're really debating before the House here is what is the most effective way of dealing with unemployment and dealing with the social welfare issue in this state. We know for a fact that when a job is lost, the cost of the exchequer is 20,000 euros approximately. That's in social welfare payments, and it's in the sort of ancillary supports that a household will receive, whether it is mortgage interest supplement, whether it is rent supplement, or other sort of social welfare supports. And that's not to talk about the personal cost of actually being unemployed and the type of anguish that it can create for a family and it can create for an individual, and the type of long-term difficulties that unemployment actually have upon people as well. So the most positive way of that spending on social welfare is to reduce the number of people who are actually unemployed, and by facilitating the maximum number of unemployed people to take up employment or self-employment. And that is what the main priority of this government is about. It's about getting people back to work, and we have already set out our stall in that area. As soon as we came to office, we set out a job initiative programme and brought a budget before this House. A budget that was funded to the tune of €500 million, a budget that we were told by the outgoing administration couldn't be arrived. We were told actually the IMF deal couldn't be really renegotiated, and within a very short period of time this government actually set out a stall and showed that job creation was its #1 priority. Some examples of that job initiative approach was the rate of employers' PRSI payable in respect of employees and the national minimum wage. That has been halved from 8.5% to 4.25%. A significant incentivisation for employers to take on new staff. There has been the reduction of VAT from 13.5% to 9% on a range of tourism-related goods and services. And feedback from this sector over the summer period has actually shown the positive impact of that measure. In your own constituency, Chairperson of West Cork, hotel accommodation has increased during that period, and it has been witnessed all around the tourist regions of Ireland, where a positive account has actually been recorded of tourism figures for the summer of 2011. There has also been the introduction of the National Internship Scheme, as been mentioned by my colleague Deputy Phelan here in the Chamber, which gives unemployed people work experience placements for over 6 or a 9-month period. And JobBridge assists in breaking the cycle where job seekers are unable to get a job without experience, either as new entrants to the labour market after education or training as unemployed workers wishing to learn new skills. The scheme also gives a real opportunity to gain valuable experience to bridge the gap between study and the beginning of their working lives. Now, I think there's another aspect of JobBridge that has to be explained as well. At present, we have graduates coming out of university and coming out of our institutes of technologies with qualifications that they are not, unfortunately, able to activate in the employment market at this moment in time. What JobsBridge actually does is it allows those people to get work experience, and as the economy actually picks up, they're not somebody who graduated from college 2 years ago with a qualification. They're people who actually have a qualification and have real experience in their field of actually working in that area. So it is not only an incentivization to allow people to continue with their studies in the workplace, it is giving them an edge in terms of actually getting employment in the long term. And I'm happy to report, with regard to this measure, that as of Thursday, the 27th of October, a total of 2,508 internship opportunities with host organisations were available on the website. In addition to this date, 2,185 interns have commenced an internship under the JobBridge scheme. So we actually are seeing the numbers, and we are seeing that the participation and the take-up of this has been successful. Another measure that the government has carried out, and which was a key commitment in the programme for government, was to establish a Commission on Taxation and Social Welfare. Its task is to examine the operation and the interaction of the tax and social welfare protection systems, to recommend cost-effective solutions as to how employment disincentives can be improved and better poverty outcomes, particularly child poverty outcomes, can be achieved, and to identify the specific practical, institutional and administrative improvements of their operation. Now, this is just one of a number of reforms that we will be setting out. And there will also be organisational transformation, and this is required. For example, and has been mentioned, I think, by other deputies in the House, the Community and Employment Services operated by FÁS and the Community Welfare Service, which were formerly part of the HSE, have been transferred to the Minister's Department. These transfers are a key element and have been set out clearly in the programme for government. We saw the type of waste that went on in these departments through the previous administration, and what we have actually done is restructured it in a way that is actually targeted to those that are actually participating in those programmes and not set up for the benefit of those who actually were running them. And when fully completed, it will actually create a new organisation providing efficient and complementary income maintenance and related services to families with children, people of working age, and retired and older people. Now, if I can revert to the amendment and the motion which is before the House this evening. And as I say, it is amazing that Sinn Féin have not actually come into the Chamber to actually listen to discussions with regard to their own amendment. It's absolutely incredible. Yes, well, maybe they're up in Stormont implementing cuts above there, too busy to come in here to actually talk about what's actually happening in this chamber. Now, what's very, very noticeable about this Sinn Féin amendment is that there is no mention of reform or tackling social welfare fraud in it. Basically what it is the huge litany of sort of accusations made against the government. It doesn't offer one single idea, and all it does really is set out some sort of a quotes a minister and takes an attack upon them. Now, if we were to document Sinn Féin's quotes and actions over the years, my goodness, we'd run out of time in this debate. So I think it's very, very disingenuous of the approach that Sinn Féin are actually taking. And secondly, what is the Sinn Féin alternative? And if I had more time in that, Chairperson, it is about collapsing the Irish economy. That's the end game of their argument. And what Mr Papadreou is doing in Greece is actually smoking out those with the Sinn Féin argument. So I would be very, very surprised if any Sinn Féin member of this House was to be quoting Mr Papandreou as an argument for them, when in fact he's actually smoking those people out in the chamber in the Greek Parliament and actually nailing them down and actually making a position. Now, if I can return in conclusion, Chairperson,
10 seconds,
to the Fianna Fáil amendment. Look, they talk about protecting the vulnerable and that the households that are on social welfare spend their money on the very, very necessities on a week-to-week basis. That's completely true. However, so do people on minimum wage. And the greatest attack ever made inside this House, Chairperson, on low-income families was the attack made by Fianna Fáil on the minimum wage in this House this time last year, when it took €40 out of the pocket of every low-income worker in this country. And not only did they do that, Chairperson, they done it in the most disingenuous manner when they said it was a demand by the Troika and by the IMF. It was no such thing. It was later discovered in this House that proposal was actually put in there by Fianna Fáil themselves. And when we came into this administration and when we started to renegotiate that deal, it was very, very evident from our discussions with the Troika that it was actually put in there by Fianna Fáil because the Troika had no difficulty with that proposal actually being removed.
Thank you, Deputy.
So I would say to Fianna Fáil this morning, welcome to the real world, members. We certainly take on board what you're saying here today, but the hubris that you exercised in this House over the years has come to an end, and the mark that you left in this House of taking €40 a week out of the most vulnerable working families will not be forgotten, and you will continue to be reminded of it.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Sean O'Freely, you have 2 minutes, Deputy.